From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream. It's our post-podcast live stream. Make sure, obviously, everyone stays tuned for the podcast that drops tomorrow. But welcome, and we encourage you to be interactive here. Ask questions. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're right. Don't be afraid to get in our faces during the live stream here. Guys, let's jump into it. Let's talk about esports and gaming.
What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week. But we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry.
The live stream's getting bigger!
I know.
Make sure you go buy William's book, The Book of Esports, which it's killing it on Amazon as always. I think everyone has it by now, but if you don't, go buy it. And even if you do, maybe go buy a second copy, you know.
Nothing says I love my mom and dad like the Book of Esports.
And on the after show, we cover all the stuff that just didn't make it into the podcast. It's still just as good. It's just as interesting. It's maybe even better because we get to interact with you guys.
Ghost Runner, I managed to fit that in with about the busiest week of work I've ever had. So anytime
priorities, right?
It's an anti-William is late device.
That's very effective.
Don't count on it though.
Risky. Hot garbage. It's an indicator of bad money management. It's an indicator of immature management.
I have some hot takes.
For the vast majority of people who game, and look, if you look at just the gaming market, the dollar in revenue, the $137 billion global gaming market, 70 billion of that is mobile. 70 billion. For those guys, this is a revolution.
Listening. Thank you for tuning in every week. Thank you for leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews. We really appreciate it.
If I was Epic, I'd be hiring some of the best talent away from Facebook, not from other game developers. I actually think they should have a fire sale, right? Sell the company at rock bottom price because it's going to zero. And I think the natural, interesting acquirer would be Apple. And they would convert them to literally Apple arcades. We want people to funnel in. We want everyone in the audience ready to go and all hyped up. That's the idea. Julian says the live stream is the best by far.
And I, for one, welcome the fact that anything that gets you to stop playing Candy Crush is good for us as a whole.
The live stream!
William and I went on a bit of a tangent.
About World of Warcraft drops, yeah.
A little bit of a tangent. This is the first interesting thing I've seen from a competitive level to what Twitch is doing. I mean, let's start with a big story. It's impossible to ignore big numbers. Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the book of esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet, William as the Professor. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast, after show, live stream. I'm Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, William Collis, Jeff Cohen, Lindsay Poss, the usual cast now, the big cast now. For those of you who are new to the after show live stream, what we do here is we cover the stuff that didn't make it into the podcast. They're just as interesting. They're just as fun. But it's all the stuff that didn't make it into the podcast for whatever reason. We didn't have time. We still look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We still dissect and analyze all the business implications of everything happening in the industry. For those of you who are new to the live stream, welcome. It's great having you. We welcome you to participate, to get involved, to ask questions, to challenge us. And if you're a regular, thank you for showing up every week. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for your participation, your enthusiasm. Hey, Greg. Hey, Julian. Hey, Chris. All of you guys are awesome. And if you're a regular and you love it here, tell your friends. This is how the live stream continues to grow. Martin says, Paul, your enthusiasm in the intro never disappoints. It's my favorite part of every show. I don't know. Hearing my voice in the beginning, Martin.
My favorite part is that dope 5-minute wait soundtrack that plays. Like
it's the anti William is late device, and it works.
It's the greatest. It's like literally like I feel like I'm walking into a club when I put on my headset.
So how's everyone doing? We're all I expected zero audience tonight because I thought everyone would be out playing Cyberpunk. What's going on here?
I'm playing it right now, Paul. That's what I.
Is that what you're doing? No,
no.
Jeff, Lindsay, I know you guys aren't playing.
Tonight is actually the premiere of my favorite show. So
what's your favorite?
You're lucky that I'm here.
This is the Business of Esports podcast.
I know, but the challenge is such a good show.
We need to create a separate podcast for you.
Yeah, I'll talk about books and reality TV.
Yeah,
it's actually a good idea.
It's actually reality TV is pretty good. Yeah.
So no. I mean, I thought this was going to be the big story this week. Cyberpunk, right? It's out tonight. Mm-hmm. All this hype, all this waiting. I'm curious if anyone has pre-ordered, has tried it. It's been playable, I guess, for a couple of hours now, maybe an hour or two now. No, nobody.
It's literally downloading in the background of my PC.
What would you say, Jeff?
Oh, sorry, Jeff. Go.
But I was just going to say, it seemed like the reviews were somewhat mixed. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of super big hype or anything.
Look, I don't want to make it like an official topic this week because really the discussion, and I said this on the podcast, is the good discussion is going to come next week or like in the next couple of weeks when we actually see numbers. Right? When we see, did it sell? Did it live up to the hype? We'll just jump in. I will show this one article here, which is from Bloomberg, which says they're like the game studio's fortunes, CD Projekt, that basically their entire fortunes are resting on this game. And if you look at their stock price over the last sort of Cyberpunk sort of trailer being released, and the stock was, I don't know, at 180, I guess, ish here, right? And we're at 400 now. This is quite a run in the last 2 years, built on a lot of hype. The question is, do we think it could ever live up to this much hype?
In terms of sales or in terms of the actual quality of the game?
Sales, right? Like fundamentally, that's
no.
Do you think the markets will be disappointed, Jeff?
Yeah, 100%. I do.
So you'd be shorting CD Projekt stock today? Yeah,
and not only. Yeah, I think sales will be. I heard numbers, people saying that it was going to do what GTA did. 30, 40 million in the first year, and then scaling to 100 over the next couple of years. That's just not going to happen, particularly because, like we discussed last time on the live stream, I think they're going to struggle with the online mode. I think it's going to be one. It's not coming for, I think, probably several years. 1, 2, maybe even 3 years. And then when it does come, this isn't their forte, right? They're good at building single-player narrative games. They're not, good at building online games, and part of their core ethos as a studio is to not over-monetize. So anyone who thinks there's a gravy train of online microtransaction money coming probably needs to reset those expectations. So, will the game be really good? Yes. Will it sell 18 to 25 million units year one? Yes. Will that be enough for the stock? I doubt it. Probably not.
So you think the hype, now that some reviews are out, now that people are playing it, you think the hype has far exceeded the reality here?
Yeah, I think the stock will be down 25 to 30% in the next 2 months.
Wow. William, you and I had a short discussion about this on the podcast. You were debating if you should short sell this stock.
Well, I mean, everybody is debating, I think, a failure in the industry from Jeff's analysis. I think it's very sanguine. Like, look, anytime there's sky high expectations for something, like, can it live up to them? And I think the early reviews that I have seen have said it's a very good game, but it's not, a revelation in terms of, this isn't a BioShock moment or like a Halo 1 moment or something like that. I think it's too early to tell. I don't know how anybody
no question, it's too early,
who's played the game, even if they've gotten a journal pre-release copy and have spent 4 or 5 days with it, I don't know how anybody is making a call about this thing yet. I also, sort of to Jeff's points, don't think it really matters how good it is. Like, the expectations are so high, I don't think it's humanly possible to live up to them. And it's going to be a very good game. It's not like CD Projekt is going to release a bad game. It's been in development for long enough with enough talented people. It will be very good. The question is somewhere between very good and an absolute magnum opus, lies. And by the way, I think even if you're absolute magnum opus level, you don't hit the sales numbers that this business needs to. I just think there's a cap on what RPG hardcore genres like this do. It's not, GTA is very mass market. Everybody who games likes GTA and a bunch of people who don't. I don't know if everybody likes games is going to enjoy putting in prosthetic katana blades into their arms and having a simulated conversation with a taxi driver. Like, it doesn't scream to me to be like great mass market property, great hardcore gamer property, sure. But I don't think that gets you where CD Projekt Red needs to get to with this thing.
I think,
go ahead, Jeff.
I think a good, Business of Esports kind of friendly wager bet would be, you guys, or Paul specifically, you love to give Activision a hard time. Do you think this will sell this year's version of Call of Duty? Because
I think it will outsell?
Yeah, will it outsell Call of Duty?
How many units did Call of Duty move this year? Do you know offhand?
Well, I guess it depends if we're talking of last year's one or this year's one. In terms of dollars, if we're including last year's release plus Warzone, I mean, there's no way. I think the number was 3 billion. I think Activision actually put out a press release on that. Not units.
I think I saw $1 billion for the new one. Is that possible?
That would make sense. Let me see. Activision, Call of Duty.
So let's back into it, right? So if the last one did $1 billion on here, right, and they're selling this game at $60 a pop, right? How many units would they have to sell?
Done the math, but so I fact checked myself.
Like 16 and a half million units.
So they put out a press release last week, so December, 6 days ago. Call of Duty surpasses 3 billion in bookings over the last 12 months. Now that's Warzone, the front-running releases, and Call of Duty Mobile. So it's cheating, but the answer is there's no
chance. There's no chance that you can come close to that. Zero chance. Right? Like I think I had looked at one point at CD Projekt's sort of historical revenue numbers. Like, I don't even think they had a year where they cracked $1 billion. I don't think.
Probably, I doubt it. Yeah.
Well, just because everybody was having trouble with the math, they would need to build 50 million units roughly at a $60 MSRP to hit the Activision Blizzard number. And again, that's assuming there's no platform cut from Steam, right? Which obviously a huge bulk of sales are going to come through. That's assuming there's no discounting or promo pricing, which again, obviously there will be for this. So yeah, I don't like I love these guys and I admire games development that happens like this, and in my bones I want titles like this to succeed and hit their marks, because the reason why we don't get more titles like this is because they most often don't hit their marks. But this feels like a very high water to swim in when, you know, there's a lot of salt. I don't know, some parallel thing, metaphor, simile. I don't know. You guys do it for me.
I think the bogey would be, you know, Activision. I think typically Call of Duty, you know, year one sales would be like 20. Like a bad Call of Duty is something like high teens. A good Call of Duty is kind of mid 20s, which I think is kind of that's probably what Cyberpunk will do. But I don't think that's enough for what the market's expecting. But anyway, we belabored that point probably.
Guys, look, I just wanted to touch on the Cyberpunk thing because it was the big news today. I don't want to spend sort of too much time on this because we don't have any numbers yet, right? But I don't think it comes close to your question, Jeff. I don't think it comes close to Call of Duty numbers. And I do think the stock will get hit. I'm not sure 25%. That sounds extreme, but I do think we're going to see at least a 10% drop. Martin says, I'm happy to wait a few months for performance optimizations. My PC is a few years old. I've heard it runs quite well with NVIDIA's DLSS if you're running on sort of a higher resolution monitor. Julian says, I watched the stream, but yeah, I watched some streams too. It's not fun to watch. And actually, a question I have for you guys, when you have a game this hyped, right? I don't know if you guys noticed, but there were a bunch of streamers that got early access, right? So they were streaming it earlier today, even though the game had not come out, right? XQC was playing it, Shroud was playing it, Pokimane, like all of the big ones, right? Mm-hmm. If you're Cyberpunk, if you're CD Projekt, right? Would you ever pay one of these streamers to go play this on launch day? Do you even have to, right? Wouldn't they want to have access to it? You'd have to pay, I feel like, one, right? You pay Shroud or something like that, and then all the others are going to want to be playing it. They don't want to be the ones left out. You just stiff all the others. Do you think this is how it happens, William, or do you think they paid all of these?
There's certainly a compelling argument to be made it happens that way. There also might be a counterpoint, which is these guys are so well agented. Their answer is, look, it doesn't matter what you want to give us. Like, we have a policy. If a game is featured on Steam in a launch window, it's a promotion. We have to be paid for it, right?
You think they would let their client, XQC, Pokimane, whatever, not be playing Cyberpunk with all the other big streamers?
You could imagine if it's a problem for Cyberpunk, it's a problem for the new Call of Duty, it's a problem for the new Hideo Kojima game, it's a problem for any big release. And the big releases are the ones that you should make the most money from promoting, right? They have the largest marketing budget. So I could see there being an incentive thing where, like, structurally a lot of them are willing to say no to this just in principle, because that they need to have the credibility to generate revenues from this type of. But yeah, to be honest with you, I get the sense CD Projekt. I think it's a different story for another way. I don't think CD Projekt is a developer, based on how they handle themselves in the market, that wants to be paying people to play their game in a mass promotion campaign, right?
Yep.
I think they're a developer who's extremely confident in what they built, right? I think they're a developer that's proud of 7 years worth of intensive work. And I think their attitude to this is, yeah, we'll give people early promotions and access, but I would be stunned if they had a massive paid campaign behind this, because one, it doesn't look that way. Or rather, they have a massive advertising campaign behind it for traditional inset and stuff to drive awareness. But I think when it comes to gaming community and credibility, I would be stunned if they're spending much of anything other than asset packages and PR management.
Do you think... Sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll be really curious to see how they handle the online one, just because, I mean, single player story mode is a much different promotional thing on Twitch than online. With online, you have to build the network effects, so maybe then they'll start paying people to play. But I imagine with single player story mode, there's that, enticing factor of being the first one to play it. So I'll be curious to see how they decide to market when the online mode is, more popular, or how they decide to do that.
Yeah, but as Jeff said, that's a long way away.
Yeah.
It's not 2022 even, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say quickly, do you guys think there's a stigma from gamers or in the community around paying people to play? Because, we all saw with Apex Legends, that was hailed as like a, Harvard Business School genius case study. Like, look how
Was.
Yeah.
And it was maybe that's because it was just sort of the first one and it was novel, but it seems like they really unlocked something, and it didn't feel as though like gamers didn't. I don't think gamers viewed that and said, "Hey, these guys are sellouts," or "This game's selling out." It's like, how is that different than if I turn on, ESPN and I see Call of Duty trailer? It's no different in my mind.
Not only is it like super the norm now, but I think it's very much accepted. And in fact, I would go so far as to say it's appreciated in the sense that I think some people now use it as this is how I can sort of try before I buy, right? I get to see, I get to, I know, I think I had seen at one point, it was either YouGov or MRI Simmons or one of these sort of research that had done a sort of research on how gamers make buying decisions, and watching a streamer play was like by far number one, sort of the most defining sort of criteria that a person uses in their game buying decision. So like it's very, very quickly become the norm, and I think it's very, very much accepted.
Well, especially with online games, it's so important.
Let me just read these comments quickly, and then we'll jump into some stuff here. Gabe says it'll never live up to the hype. 7 years since the trailer. In my opinion, it's a mediocre game. I mean, that's the problem when there's that much hype. Martin says no actual reason to rush to a new single player game. It's not like a multiplayer game where you want to be on it when the servers are at their fullest. This is true, and you're not going to fall behind in any way. Julian says, what does it cost? Julian, if you mean to sponsor the streamers to play, it varies depending on the streamer, but it can be very expensive. Some of these streamers make lots and lots of money. If I'm the executive at CD Projekt, I would have not paid any of them though. Chris says #ad is the most valuable term of all time. Yeah. I mean, but literally, Chris, this happened in just the last few years, right? Like before this was not a thing. Greg says, I watch before I play. Exactly. I'm the same way now. Guys, look, let me just do two things here. Let me just tease what's coming on the podcast tomorrow, because we have some great topics for the live stream, but let me tease what's coming on the podcast tomorrow. First of all, we talk about Microsoft buying esports tournament platform Smash.gg, and we go into that and discuss that. It's a great conversation around what we think Microsoft's actually going to do with this or not do with this. We talk about the rumors that Netflix is looking at getting into gaming. And at the same time, Activision is suing them for poaching talent. And we talk about Facebook Gaming introducing a new non-gaming content hub called Hanging Out, which is basically the Twitch version of just chatting, which we thought was interesting. And then finally, we talk about Fortnite potentially returning to Apple devices via the NVIDIA cloud gaming service, GeForce Now. This is what's on the podcast tomorrow, guys. I highly recommend it. It's going to be a great show.
It's a good episode. It's a
good episode. Now, can you guys allow me, before we jump into topics, to tease something here?
Paul, I don't want you to tease it. I want you to
This is the big announcement.
Announce it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish I had a drum roll here. I should have had that ready.
I can do a drum roll. You want me to do a drum roll? See if
go ahead.
Filters it out.
It completely
filters anything, right? Isn't that incredible? The NVIDIA audio correction software is the most incredible piece of software. I'm sorry. Anyway, make the announcement.
The announcement is we have Business of Esports merch. It's coming. The website, our store, is going to be live probably tomorrow. I will say there'll be an announcement on Twitter, on LinkedIn. There'll be an announcement everywhere. So you will be able to go buy Business of Esports merchandise. I will tease some of the things we have
so cool.
going up tomorrow. So the first is your basic Business of Esports t-shirt, right? This is the basic. Everyone needs to have one of these. If you don't, can't really be a Business of Esports fan. And of course, because we're in esports, we needed to have a hoodie. We wouldn't be a legitimate esports company without a hoodie.
There's a chat comment from Chris saying, "You become another hoodie selling org." Right? As the hoodie.
We are officially a hoodie selling org, Chris. And in fact, I did. I will say this was quite purposeful, because I've spent so much time criticizing the selling of hoodies I needed to see for myself if it was a terrible business. It's a pretty terrible business. Okay. We are doing this mostly for you guys, mostly just because it's fun to have merch. But it's not a great business. Let's be honest with each other.
What are the prices of some of this stuff? How much is the hoodie?
When it goes live tomorrow, you will know.
Are you still like playing with the models to figure it out?
Paul is literally in Excel. He's like, it's like $29.74. Excellent.
We have a From the Keyboard to the Boardroom shirt.
Ooh, that's hot.
They get better as they go along, by the way, guys. They get like more
This is the
advantages.
back of the From the Keyboard to the Boardroom shirt.
This is my favorite.
So there's some of that. We have a GAAA shirt, which if you look at the back, it's Gamers Against Aim Assist, which probably my personal favorite in the bunch here. We have, of course, and I will say these are limited edition, okay? I was debating doing this because I wasn't sure if anyone would wear our faces. But I will say that I did order in much more limited quantities 2 shirts, a Team Professor shirt and a Team Prophet shirt. So if you like either of those two, I will say they're very limited quantity compared to the rest. And B, please buy the Team Prophet shirt because I don't want my ego hurt if the Team Professor shirt outsells mine.
I've been trashing Paul so much that Team Professor is going to sell out ahead of him.
I think you should gamify this a bit. In order to be able to buy the Team Prophet or Team Professor, you have to buy one of everything, and then it costs like $5,000. You're not maximizing profitability here.
No,
I agree. Yeah,
if anyone's willing to wear my face on their chest, I don't. God bless them. Right?
That's fair as well.
This is solved holiday presents for my family.
That's it. You have to wear mine, William, and I'll wear yours.
Actually, that would be adorable. I would love to do that.
But no, they are these. We are calling them limited edition. We're probably never going to do these again.
I don't think we're going to do these again, guys. Like honestly,
and they are
not
in
saying
limited
that
quantity.
to sell them. We're just saying that because I don't know if our egos reach deep enough to really justify this.
We also have Business of Esports socks, which are, if you see them, they're so cool, and in 2 colors, in fact. So in blue and in orange, in crew socks, and the quality is amazing on everything. I spared no expense to produce only the best here. This was not to turn a profit, even though I am the profit. This was really just a fun thing for you guys. Hopefully you buy something. I stay tuned for the official tweet when the store goes live. All right. Thank you guys for allowing me to do that. Lindsay, which one was your favorite?
The socks.
The socks? Really?
Yeah, I love.
I feel like the socks are going to be a big hit because they're fun. There's like a bunch of hold on, I'll put it back up. But there's like dollar signs and controllers and mice and the Business of Esports is sort of a little bit secondary, but they're a lot of fun.
Honestly, I think the socks look classy. I'm not saying that, but like when you were showing me the designs, because this is really Paul's done all the work on this. I was pretty excited. I am definitely advanced ordering several pairs because also, by the way, I've noticed this is a weird thing, but like I never seem to have socks I want to wear. I don't know if anybody feels that way, but I have no warm relationship with my socks, right? These will be the first pair of socks I'll put on in the mornings and I'll be like, excellent.
Chris says another hoodie selling org. Yes, Chris, but these are Business of Esports hoodies, so it's totally different. Completely different. It's not the same.
And to be
at
fair,
all.
we did already announce a Cash App compound. So
that's it. They're all just copying us now. Thumbs up on the socks. Martin says socks. Now we're talking about I figured the socks would be a hit. The Gamers Against Aim Assist is my fave shirt. Martin, I'm with you. That is my favorite too. Other than the Team Profit shirt, which I would wear my own face, but that's just me. All right, that's it. Let's move. Let's talk about some Business of Esports news. And Julian, you asked, have you guys discussed the Forbes list of most valuable esports companies? Well, that is the perfect segue, because that is exactly what we're about to start with and kick off with here. Forbes most valuable esports companies of 2020 list. All right. And if we go through, let's just look at the list here. Forget all the sort of the methodology and everything else. Number one, they have TSM. Okay. Valued at 410 million, estimated revenue 45 million, 50% revenue from esports. Okay. Number two, just keep some of these numbers in mind. Estimated value, Cloud9 was previously number one, by the way, last year. Estimated value 350 million, estimated revenue 30 million, revenue from esports 70%. Team Liquid 310 million, estimated revenue 28 million, revenue from esports 89%. FaZe Clan, this one's interesting because it's very different from the rest. $305 million value, 40 million estimated revenue, 20% revenue from esports, 80% of their revenue.
Define that. Like where is the rest coming from?
Like merch and content, maybe. And
so they're not considering that esports? That's a little surprising. I mean, it would be one thing if they were like selling hamburgers, but I feel like if they're selling merch, that should be, it's still their brand and it's still esports revenue.
Fair, but it's not strictly esports revenue. And it all comes back to sort of William. I know you have a soapbox on this one, but like that Newzoo $1 billion number, like what actually goes into that? Merch is probably not in that, right? Like if this is the methodology that Forbes is using. By the way, let me say, because I skipped the methodology part. Almost all of these numbers are self-reported, right? They're all private companies. Forbes is going and asking the companies, like, what are you worth? Like, what do you do in terms of revenue?
Well,
right? Like,
I doubt they're lying about their revenue, though.
I'm not saying lying, but no one's going to underestimate. Right?
It's like when you list your height for sports.
It's always like you round up a bit, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Lie about things like that.
Well, there are some very serious, we'll get to it in a second, critics of this list. 100 Thieves, 190 million, estimated revenue 16. Genji, 185, estimated revenue 14. By the way, 100 Thieves, only 35% revenue from esports, whereas a Genji, 75%. Enthusiast Gaming, 180 million, estimated revenue 95 million, revenue from esports 6%.
What makes no sense about that is they're a public company. Isn't their market cap higher than 180 million?
I don't know. Are they?
Let's check. We have to check.
If their revenue is high, I would expect
Jeff, I'll cover for you. Get on it. Ticker symbol EGLX.
According to Google, just a quick Google, it's 330 million. Now that could be Canadian, but I don't think the exchange rate's not.
No, it's not that.
All I'm going to say is rigorous methodology. Forbes, rigorous methodology.
I will say one of the biggest criticism of this Forbes article, the title is most valuable esports companies, right? When you go to an EGLX and only 6% of their revenue is from esports, people were going, why is it even on this list, right? If that little of your revenue is actually from esports, how can you even call it an esports company, right? There was quite a bit of backlash there. And then G2, 175, estimated revenue 19, NRG, 155, estimated revenue 20, and T1, 150, estimated revenue 15. I think what Forbes essentially did is put like a 10x revenue multiple on every team, right? It's not in their methodology, but fundamentally it was like, this seems to be the formula that they're using.
We multiply by 10. You're not far off. Yeah.
Is anyone surprised at any of these numbers? Let's start with that. Are there any surprises in here?
I mean, I'm not surprised by the numbers. That doesn't mean I agree with them or believe that in any world any of these teams could sell. If they were selling 100% of the business, it would not sell for those numbers, I don't think. But am I surprised that they're doing that kind of revenue? Yeah, it's about what I would have expected, maybe even on the low end, like you would think the revenue might even be higher for some of these. And then am I shocked that they just put a 10x multiple on these things? No, that's
I mean, can I ask? Sorry, go ahead, Lindsay.
Just to be clear, the estimated revenue includes all revenue, right? They're not then multiplying by the I figured, but just to make sure, because so then it is lower. Some of it is definitely a little bit lower than I expected.
Does it shock anyone that like some of these revenue numbers, and again, they're self-reported, so it's like I have doubts. Okay, I will say I don't think TSM is generating $45 million of revenue. I'm going to put that out there. I think that number is inflated, would be my guess. But is anyone surprised? And I would say the 10x multiple on revenue in sort of these frothy days is not even that crazy, right? Like it's not even that sort of out there. But is anyone surprised that I think all the teams on this list, as far as I know, none of them are profitable, as far as I know. Maybe TSM. TSM might be. But like when you have teams like 100 Thieves, for example, which we know is not profitable, right? 16 million in revenue, and they can't, like zero profitability. Like, is this not highlight the out of control cost structures of these teams?
I don't know if that's necessarily a fair way to evaluate, a team, because we don't go around and ask, hey, are the New York Yankees profitable? In the Yankees case, the answer is probably yes, but there are definitely MLB teams. Like, for example, I'm a big Cleveland Indians fan, and they talk nonstop that every year their owner's cutting payroll because he claims the team's losing money. Meanwhile, it's worth over $1 billion. So I don't know if necessarily, we can have a whole conversation about these organizations, whether they're good businesses, whether they're worth that, or, even just a hypothetical debate about whether any sports team, if they're not profitable, should be worth $1 billion. But I don't think, necessarily we should judge these differently than, we would an NHL team or, an MLS team or something like that.
That's fair. Chris says, does revenue include capital raises? Chris, it's funny, but I don't think so.
I really don't.
That would be something that I think the Phases and the 100 Thieves of the world would do, but I don't think so. Let me just introduce one more sort of twist to this story. And that is, this was an article from Dexerto, and the headline here was Envy CEO slams esports valuations as utter garbage. I was going to say if he used hot garbage, we'd be suing Envy CEO, but he didn't. He called it utter garbage. But Envy, his team, obviously not included in the list. So take that for what it's worth. But the criticism he had was, he said, this Forbes analysis is utter garbage. To be clear, this is not a criticism of the organizations included, mentioned, all of whom deserve to be there. I have friends at all of them and have a great respect for what they are doing across the board. But in full transparency, this is a complete drive-by, cursory analysis, which has led me to question the entire valuation/editorial capability of Forbes. Reimer went on to explain that since Forbes' last valuation, in which Envy were ranked 8, Envy has massively expanded, added Post Malone to their ownership group, and won the inaugural CDL championships. Regardless, they missed out on a top 10 spot. He added more context to his post by explaining that Envy provided Forbes with requested information, but refused to continue to work with them when they learned of their changed methodology for this year's list. He said, so let me just read his post, which is the changed methodology. He says, as a former valuation consultant, determining equity value for private companies is by definition a huge challenge. I will add my own experience. It's guessing, right? It's what someone's willing to pay, the valuation of a private company. One which is made even more difficult when not asking for any supporting information. Completely estimated revenues, no accounting for burn rates, no interest in new initiatives. At no point were we asked to provide data. Since the last review, we have increased revenue, added blah, 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 and expanded. Based on the companies mentioned, one would think it was purely based on which organizations would give them the biggest article reach, which, to be fair, is certainly a contributor to value. in my honest opinion, this list has become a disservice to the entire industry. Who here agrees with Adam Reimer?
I would have to know more about the Forbes methodology, but based on the numbers that it gave, I mean, I think he has pretty solid footing there. I mean, as you said,
do you agree that the totally estimated, guessing on the revenues, maybe some data from teams, but somewhat guessing, no accounting for burn rates, no interest in new initiatives? Do you think all of that? And he says at no point were we asked to provide data. I don't know if that's true with how they handled all the teams, but at least in his case, that was true. Do you think that puts the entire Forbes article in question here?
First of all, I mean, I don't want to be critical of Forbes, but it's not exactly where you go for academic, research about business, right? Like, I mean, I'm sorry.
At one point, it might have been.
I'm not trying to be like mean to Forbes. It's just like, what do you expect? Like, it's a little bit of pop culture journalism about business. It doesn't mean it's badly written or it's not respectable to write there. I love a lot of Forbes pieces. I think they do great stuff, but like, it's not, I don't think they're known as a deep research house, that's going to go, they're not a think tank, right? They're not going to go to the mat for this. And so that's one, like, first of all. Two is it seems a bit like, to be honest, obviously he's upset about not being included in the rankings because perception matters a lot, particularly for the large teams that have a bunch of, that have to have this much capital to continue to funnel them. And the reality is for a business like Envy, it could be a big deal missing the rankings because it starts to create the wrong type of narrative around the organization, right? Like, that's the second piece I'd say. But then the third piece I'd say, which is really interesting, is I look at these rankings, I notice a really fascinating trend, which is basically it's a ranking of who has LCS teams. If you actually look at the rankings, like basically, I think it's 8 of the 10 teams listed have an LCS franchise slot. One of the ones that doesn't is FaZe, which is on I think, arguably completely different business model than all these other guys. And the other one that doesn't, NRG, did and lost it, right? So I think it's like super, super interesting.
An enthusiast who doesn't, at 6% doesn't belong on this list at all.
No, that's a fair point, yeah. But I think it's just really, really interesting to highlight. Like, I suspect another symptom of his complaint a little bit is the reality. I think the CDL OWL franchises just aren't as valuable as they were last year. And I think something like that has really depressed an organization like, Envy, which, is like, it's a driving factor in, kicking them out of the list, right?
Yeah, I mean, NRG, who has only CDL and OWL, was in 9th. And I would argue that's an organization that is overvalued, always overhyped. But Envy, you're right, William, it's an interesting, but does that mean this is what Forbes looked at, is do they have an LCS sort of slot or not?
No, but I'm sort of making the point about like, assets that are driving valuations here. And but yeah, the reality is, I think Jeff who said, no, it was you, Paul, who said it best. These are private companies. So like nobody knows. It's a little bit meaningless to rank them, to some extent.
So yeah, but that comes back to the point then all these numbers, all these values, basically all the data in here is just, it's kind of garbage, right? It's not of any use to anyone other than the clickbait for Forbes. Basically.
Yeah, but it must
right?
probably.
That's what all these Forbes lists are for.
Yeah.
Like, how do they determine? Like they're the Forbes 500 richest people. Like they don't really know their
30 under 30.
All this stuff.
Oh yeah, those lists.
Yeah.
I think he comes off. He's absolutely right, but it definitely comes off a little bit as sort of sour grapes. It's almost like that meme, like the "Sir, this is a Wendy's." It's like, guy, it's the Forbes list. Like, what did Did you if you want like a rigorous valuation and all that, go to a private equity firm, go to a bank, and sell your company.
I do think, to his point, though, I would have expected a list like this to include more qualitative moves, like the Post Malone thing, simply because they're kind of taking a shot in the dark anyway at actual valuation. So why not say, oh, this one's more valuable because it has a better celebrity presence, or FaZe is super valuable. I don't know. I would have, I guess, expected
a little more and work. This article probably took someone like 4 hours of work. Realistically, we're giving them way too much credit. I think, they should either do just rank by revenue, because if you're going to throw just an arbitrary multiple, like why is one worth 10 times and one worth like 8.5? They're not justifying that in any way. So you might as well, if they had some framework framework for it. Like, okay, if you own an LCS team, those revenues are worth 10 times.
Weighted.
An Overwatch League team is worth 4 times. Merch revenue is 2.5 times.
Yeah.
Great. Like that's a great framework. We can debate about, you know, the merits of the different areas of it, but that's an actual valuation framework. It seems like here they're just like taking their word for it. So why not just rank one either completely by revenue, or do their last valuation raise? So okay, this team raised at this valuation, and just rank it based on that.
Well, especially with the percentage of esports revenue, which just
I mean, we talked about it. You made the joke, Paul, like EGLX, you know, enthusiasts, they shouldn't be on this list. I mean, I think that's to their credit. I would, you know, if at those valuations, I would 100% be buying into enthusiasts, which I think has an incredible, like a very good business model and is profitable over, you know, these esports teams at those valuations. So I definitely want to give a shout out to the guys at EGLX.
Yeah, they have 95 million estimated revenue, and that I'm assuming that number is somewhat accurate. That they look. Yeah. By the way, I read in the article the way they came out with the 180 million valuation for EGLX is they said because it's public and to account for market fluctuations, they took an average enterprise value between September 1st and December 1st. And I don't think their stock price.
That makes a whole lot of sense. That's how you determine how much a public company is worth. It's like what?
Invented finance.
Like that quote alone should literally get you to just complete clickbait. It's like, oh, what is the company worth? Like, I don't know. Microsoft's what it was worth the average of the last 5 years. Like, what? It literally is worth what it's worth today. That's insane.
Speechless.
Defies any sort of understanding of public market.
That's dropped in there, and they're like, "Oh, I've been doing the stock market all wrong, guys.
All wrong." Yeah.
I didn't realize that's why people talk about 30, 60, 90-day trailing averages. It's because you have to average the company value over that time to know what it's worth.
That's it. I don't want to buy your stock at the price today, Jeff. I want to buy it at the average over the last 6 months, please.
That's why bankers get paid so much money. They must be calculating these averages to figure out what the
Roman says, I'm not sure why Forbes didn't ask these teams for any data, especially with Envy being on a top 10 list in the past. Yeah, Roman, I think it's pretty clear that Forbes didn't really know what they're doing here. Chris says, call me when there's a list ranking teams by debt. But Chris and Jeff, you guys had me thinking, right? We should be doing a list of our own, right? Like top 10. Like I want to rank them by things that people aren't talking about, like burn rate, right? Ranked by burn rate.
You know, good luck getting that out of most of them, I'm sure.
We'll call it the esports team suicide watch or something like that.
Paul, we should do a ranking, like quite seriously. Like this is sort of
there is a better methodology if we actually took the time to think it through.
Yeah, there's like or a fun ranking or something. But like the fact is, literally all these guys did is, you know, picked a couple of big names. And again, I don't make criticism. Like, I don't expect more than that from Forbes. It's like, I don't pick up Newsweek and I'm like, sure, well, this isn't going to win the Pulitzer. You know, like, it's Newsweek. Like, what do you think? You know, I'm not trying to criticize, but like, I mean, there clearly isn't an enormous amount of thought that went into this, but I think there would be interesting with an article that actually did that. You know what I mean?
Martin says, yeah, good luck getting data from the private teams on anything negative. Martin, you know, having been in on the private equity venture capital side for so long, if I can find the head count, which for most of these teams probably not that hard, right? Like you can go on LinkedIn and figure out how many people work for the company for the most part. If you can get a pretty good accurate head count, I can give you a pretty accurate burn rate, just having done this for so long. And so I don't know if it would be, you know, completely impossible. I will just add, guys, there's one final twist to this story, okay, before we move on. And that is our good friend, Dr. Disrespect, who chimed in on this Forbes list and not only had an opinion, okay.
I bet it was a really nice one. I bet it was so congratulatory and just gracious and sweet.
Not only had an opinion, but dropped a little like rumor bomb in the middle of his opinion, like a little tease. Okay. And here's the article. Here's the tweet. Okay. and he was responding to Jake Lucky, who hosts a show on esports. I'm sure many of you know, who posted the list on his Twitter feed, right? And then the doc responded, and the doc wrote, "Come on, Jakey Poo. None of these orgs are making any real money, including Carlos's G2 Mercedes Wagon Club. But my team, just wait. But I'm just thinking out loud. Never mind." So he completely sort of knocks all the top 10 list, saying none of them are making any real money, which the doc and I always agree pretty much. But then hinted that he's starting his own team. What do you guys think of that?
Oh, Paul, time for you to suit up. Get ready.
Me?
Yeah, Paul, he's calling you. The phone's ringing right now.
But how funny is it that the doc seems to be hinting at not just a team, but he's hinting that a team that will make money. Like, talk about the direct route to my heart here. I mean, this is like...
Well, the doc makes money, so if he just takes a bunch of random people and puts them on his team and pays them nothing, he'll make money, right? If he himself makes money as his own team.
So you think his personality can drive profitability on his team where no other esports team seems to have been able to, basically?
Well, it depends how you define, right? Like, if he makes money, right? Like, where he's profitable.
No question.
So if
he started an org, separate business.
So you're making the technicality argument.
Yeah, I'm making the technicality
argument. On a team with 4 no-name players, that's a very profitable team.
It included his streaming revenue. And basically paid nothing to get into organization, to get into.
Let me be clear then in the question. If he started his own org to compete with the phases, the 100 Thieves, the TSMs, the C9s, right? And funded that team, what does the doc do different to drive profitability other than leverage his celebrity? Or do we believe that this is all he's bringing to the table?
I have to be the first one. I can't see Dr. Disrespect doing a normal team. Right, like
he couldn't
doing a TSM style. So if he does anything, in my mind, it's like a Sacha Baron Cohen style team. It's going to be 4 other people with ridiculous personalities, all play ups. Like, it'll be like the Mopey Gamer, the Mountain Dew Boy, the like whatever. Like, I'm totally making it up, but like it'll be something like that, and it'll be more of a pageantry driven persona type team. Are
you saying he will be every player on the team? Like,
no, I'm saying I don't think he would do that. Sorry, that's but like I think he will. The people he will recruit will be character actors like him, right?
But that makes sense, right? He's a big fan of wrestling. Yeah. Wrestling had sort of loose teams like that, right? Where the wrestlers who all had individual characters all sort of wrestled under a banner. Like, I haven't watched wrestling, but like a long time ago, there was like New World Order and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Whoa, Paul! Look at you, Mr. Jake the Snake. Tell me about your...
No, but right, you could see something like that. The question is, how does that allow them to be more profitable? I don't know. Hold on. Let me read some of this. Terry, I'm going to get to this in a second because that's actually a fun thing we should do. So I'm going to get to your comment in a second. Neil says Oxygen Esports top 10 team.
Right.
Only you and William believe that.
That's not true. We have a lot of fans now, but yeah.
Where's your LCS franchise?
It's coming. We got to get the Valorant franchise first. That's the dream.
Neil says, let's sell hoodies and t-shirts and then sell media rights to ESPN and CBS Interactive, maybe BAM too, and then data rights to Nielsen and Super Data. It's the perfect formula. Neil, I mean, I want to frame this. This is like esports team business model 101 right here. And it starts with the hoodies and the t-shirts. Chris says the doc has hinted at a TV show and a crypto betting play. Let's not hold our breath too long. I mean, it would be interesting if it was integrated in a TV show, right? If his team was part of a bigger media play.
Your problem, Chris, is I would like it if the doc did all of those things too.
Yeah.
Right? Like those are also not bad ideas, like all of which I would be interested in. Like, if he had his own TV show, it would probably be the reason I watch TV. Let's start there, right? But yeah, I also suspect though, but going back to, because I don't think I quite finished my point, like I suspect the way he would do it would be like a stable of characters, because one thing that's missing in esports today is character actor driven brands, and we've talked about a long time how the doc is different because while everybody who's a streamer plays a persona to some extent, he's truly pretending to be like he's like a character actor basically. And I think teams of more character actors are interesting. Then you're basically like a movie studio. You're not an esports team, or you're a comedy production network, but it's interesting as a way to think about it, and it's what makes sense for a guy like the doc. So
Paul, I think your analogy to wrestling is actually a really good one. Not one I had thought of before. I mean, just in the sense of it's all about the personalities. It's fake, so nobody cares.
No, it's fake.
Let me rephrase that. It's all scripted ahead of time. It's entertaining. I do think something like that, the doc could put together kind of what the two of you guys are both saying. Something like an organization where they play, they stream, but it's not really competitive. It's entertainment, or they're not participating in tournaments to win. Is what I mean. I think he could do that, and I think that organization would make money because.
But take that idea one step forward. That's kind of interesting because obviously, like entertainment wrestling, there is a very serious sport of wrestling underneath it, right? Which entertainment wrestling has totally dwarfed, despite the fact that one is a real sport and the other is entirely scripted, right?
Well, they're still athletes, though. Let's be clear.
No, 100%. Like I know enough about people who are, in the WWE to understand like that is just an incredibly athlete, like this incredibly physically demanding job. Like I still can't imagine how they can do some of those things. I mean, it's more like Olympic style athletes to me versus like wrestling because it's like, balance and drama. But yeah, I totally agree with you. That's a good point. But it's interesting, like, could you see a world where esports, the actual underlying being good at playing of the sport, is dwarfed by the entertainment value of the persona of the people playing?
We've talked about wrestling in this context so many times before. We've said the exact same thing about wrestling previously. There was actually an awesome panel at PAX by a guy who helped develop WWE storylines, and he talked about trying to do that with teams. We've all begged for that with the Overwatch League. I want to see fights. I want to see drama. I'd watch. Yes,
fights would be so good. I mean, there's fights in hockey. Why not in Overwatch League? Right?
Yeah.
I want to see them go at it in between rounds.
It's already happened. I mean, if you think about the pyramid of what we think of as esports, I mean, the vast majority of people on Twitch, and right now probably the vast majority of the economic pie, is from these people who are playing as entertainment rather than participating in what we think of as, high level competitive professional tournaments.
Yeah.
The vast majority of viewership, at least viewership, is clearly driven by, streamers, which are sort of on that pyramid, I would think of the entertainment, axis.
Yeah. Chris says wrestling angle is what made Jabali's CEO tournament so successful for the FGC. Yeah, and the doc borrows from wrestling big time. I would argue it's why he's been so successful. He really took what works for wrestling and has embodied it. Let's just go back to Terry's comment. There's one ranking we could do about who we would invest in, but it's a good question. Of the top 10, I just want to close on this. Which one of the top 10 would you guys put your own money into if you could?
I have to look at the list again. Can you call it up?
Yeah, let me put up the doc one because it's.
I don't know if I have enough money to even consider this question.
It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. That's a good summary. If I had to put money in any of those, it's a really good question. Well, first of all, I should say I would obviously put money into Oxygen, my pro team, because that rocks. But if you forced me to be limited to this list,
whoops, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So hard, actually. It's really hard. I would probably say either TSM or Team Liquid for similar reasons. And that I think this is a winner take all market, right? So you're better off being like at the very peak of the list significantly. Like it's a lot better to be 1 than to be 4. I disagree with the rankings. I would put TL above C9 in brand. A lot of them have, I think TL and TSM have done a really nice job of diversifying and are not so anchored against some of the Blizzard ecosystem investments. But I mean, honestly, in my mind, the bigger thing is if I was going to invest, I would, like if I had to invest in these, I would be looking at kind of splitting my bets around a couple, I think, because like at the end of the day, an investment in C9 is sort of an investment in TSM, is sort of an investment in TL. They're all a little bit fungible. And so I'd probably rather split my chips around, but that's just me,
Lindsay?
I probably would invest in TSM. They just seem to be dominant in basically every measure.
Jeff?
Well, I mean, I already said it before, and it's probably the least popular on the list, but enthusiast. I mean, not to mention, we know based on the valuation they're saying, I can immediately double my money because I'm investing at 180 million, and I know it's worth 300. But that's
you found the cheat code. Don't announce it on a live stream.
That was too logical, for this hypothetical question. But I really do, like their business model. It obviously is completely separate from owning teams. It's literally digital media and selling advertising, but I think they have, a way bigger audience when you amass all of what they have and on all their owned websites than actually any of these teams, even though people might not realize that. So yeah, I would go with that. When you're talking about, it's like the old Warren Buffett quote, price is what you pay, value is what you get. I mean, you have to think, when you're investing in something, particularly a risky endeavor like this, you're investing at a $300-400 million valuation. You're going to need to see that value go up, 5 to 10x in order to kind of make it worth your while as a VC investor. Do we think TSM is going to be worth $4 billion at some point? I highly doubt it. So, from a risk reward perspective, when if you were investing in these teams at a 50 million valuation, yeah, right on. Like, let's jump in and do it, which is where, frankly, a lot of the investors that are invested in, or even lower. But if you're buying in now at these valuations, I mean, I just don't see how that's going to work out well for you. At least
it might. It'll take a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And so my answer to this question is just to be different, because I probably would have said EGLX too. But just to be different, what I would be looking at is, because I'm getting in late, because these valuations are big, because I need to get out probably at 3 or 4 billion. And the reality is none of these teams have traded hands yet, right? Like there's no comparables. There's no, right? We don't really know what any of these things are worth today because none of them have traded hands. What I would be looking at is which team has the lowest burn rate and is operating most cost effectively, with the idea that it needs to survive the next 5 to 10 years for me to see sort of that big home run kind of return. So I'd be looking at which team is controlling their burn and spending sort of very sniper shot versus just sort of burning through investor cash at a prodigious rate and expecting that they'll keep raising over the next 5 to 10 years. So I would be looking at who's closest to profitability, really. That would be my pick. And I don't know on this list who is. Could be TSM, but maybe it's not. I can tell you almost for sure it's probably not 100 Thieves, probably not NRG, probably not FaZe. The rest are a toss-up. Let's move on, guys. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about this story, weird story when I saw it, but worth discussing. This is from Esports. And the headline here is esports organization Team 33 signs 8-year-old Fortnite player. I like the subheadline. This looks like something that will cause some issues. And so, there's not much to this. They Team 33 signed an 8-year-old. They're giving him $5,000 gaming setup and a $33,000 signing bonus. Get it? Because it's Team 33. And he's going to be training with the team's Fortnite group, actually, who he's been training with since he was 6. They're saying they've been secretly scouting talent for their roster, and they're proud to sign him. They've made it a point to train him over the past few years, and they like training their players early in life. Let me just start off. I will say I don't get this at all, right? I see basically zero upside. Why do you want to sign an 8-year-old? He's not going to be winning tournaments at 8. And only downside here, like do you guys see this any other way? Like, what could have been the reasoning here at Team 33?
Get a headline.
You think that's it? Is it just cheap marketing?
I mean, everything about this screams marketing, including the $33,000 signing bonus. Like,
but
you
to
don't
put
pick
2 years into it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's either publicity. This is someone's son, someone important son, or I hate to say it, this is a Make-A-Wish kind of thing. I mean, that feels like the only three things I can think of where this would make any sense. I agree, it's not going to end well. It's probably not good for the mainstreamization of the sport, or sort of the normalization of the sport. Yeah, I think it's.
Like, I mean, Martin took the words out of my mouth. Signings for Fortnite still for what esports scene? I mean, it's true.
Martin,
you can't argue that.
That was savage, Martin. That was, yeah. It's just I just like, I'm all for scouting talent early. I think that's important. The industry needs to do more of it. But 8 years old, when a lot of, by the way, these events have publisher, leaving aside the ethics of it, which I think is questionable. A lot of these events have publisher mandated entries for competitors that are 16 plus, 13 plus, 18 plus, right? So even if you take the youngest end of this is still somebody who's 5 years away from competitive eligibility. Like, what's the return? And by the way, like, what was the demand? Like, were there other teams trying to sign this person? Like, why did you have to act now? Like, it was like, well, if we don't get him, on that 9th birthday, he's gonna blow and get the candle wish, and then we're all done.
They're also betting there's gonna be Fortnite esports 5 years from now, right? Like, the chance of that is zero. I will say, Fortnite announced this week they canceled all their in-person events for next year. Like, Fortnite esports are dead here.
Well,
who's this kid going to compete for or in? Martin says, what age do you need to be to have a Twitch account? I believe 13, based on what's it, the Copa, whatever.
I didn't even find this kid.
Yeah,
there's rules in the US as a name. Yeah, Copa.
Oh yeah, COPPA, Children Online Privacy Protection.
Yeah, so you have to be 13 basically if you're the operator of any online service, you need to be 13.
I would like to see the news article go the other way, like,
which is
Team 33
95-year-old,
89-year-old gamer. Yeah,
that would be way more fun.
That would be way more feel better, way more fun, and candidly, like, a little more plausible, right? And a little, give me some hope for my Heroes of the Storm vestigial career.
Christine says yes, 13 for Twitch in the US. Yeah, it's related to the Copa rules.
COPPA.
They found him through covert Roblox analytics. Yeah, it's we called it, William. It's their spying. Their spying program is working.
Let's be honest, nobody's ever heard of. Sorry, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but I was not aware of a team called Team 33 before.
Well,
right?
Now you are. That's the whole point.
It's a marketing play. Come on, guys. I think we're giving this a little too much play for what it is. It's like an attention-grabbing stunt. Just like
do you
buying
really think they spent 2 years developing this marketing play, though?
No, I think they've known the kid for 2 years, and they were fishing
like
around
how
for
much
marketing an idea, and they're like,
Still,
"What if we sign?"
Yeah, this is probably like the founder's cousin who on Christmas was really good at Fortnite, and then they decided this would be a good marketing play. And it is, because we're talking about it. Now they're getting all this free marketing from the Business of Esports. I mean, you got to pay for this.
I'm going to send them a check, an invoice.
That's why we're going to...
Any chance this is some kind of entertainment child actor kind of move? I mean...
Possible.
Maybe, but he can't even have a Twitch account. He legally, I don't think he can have a YouTube account. Could he? I mean, it is kind of the equivalent of child actors, right? In the TV world. Yeah. The thing is, there's a requirement for it, right? You need an actor to play the role of someone who's young, so you need to get someone who's young. In the esports world, there's really no requirement to sign a young player. I mean, there's nothing pushing these teams that requiring them to go younger. If anything, they're already all too young, right? Like the average League of Legends pro is like 17 years old, something ridiculous, right? And so like signing him at 8 years old doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At 13, I would get that, or 14.
Yeah,
maybe
or
because
younger, 12, 11, even somewhere closer to the competitive range where I could see like, okay, like they've really scouted this person, they have confidence, they want to lock them up. I could see something like that. But 8 is just so young.
There's also no guarantee he'll be good, right? At 8 years
I'm gonna
old.
play devil's advocate for a second here, and I don't even know if I agree with this argument, but if you, as I typically like to do, bring it back to traditional sports, if you think about Major League Baseball, what's the average age of a Major League Baseball player? If I had to guess, it's probably 27, 28, maybe around there. Well, they're signing 18-year-olds. They signed 16-year-olds, right, out of high school.
Good point. Very good point.
International, 17, 18. So, you're saying, hey, he's the average age of a League of Legends player is 17. They're signing an 8-year-old. It's not that different if you think about it in that context.
Actually, Jeff, that's a really good point.
I mean, my first thought was Barcelona Soccer Club and the fact that they start kids at 3. But the thing is with that is there's a specific development program starting at that young age all the way up until you become a professional. Just taking one kid and plucking him out and saying, you're it now is much different than saying like in the next.
It's way better. It's way better. They've streamlined it. They didn't need to do the whole camp. They just got the one who was going to be the best from it anyway.
Yeah, they got Messi. They're good. You make a good point. I mean, if they had said, hey, we're signing a team of 8-year-olds, or we're creating a league where we're going to get 58-year-olds and we're going to split them into 10 teams of 5, and we're going to, they're going to
compete to the death. The last 8-year-old standing gets a contract.
I think
we're going to Hunger Games this.
Really gaming business model, but yeah, I mean, it's not that crazy.
Martin says, so he can't monetize streaming at his age, and there are barely tournaments for him to win in. So what's the point? Marketing stunt. I think we all agree. Chris says, farm systems don't give you super money. No, they don't. I mean, like Overwatch contenders and all the tier 2 basically everywhere other than League of Legends has proven that they're basically not sustainable in esports yet. Let's stay on the team topic, guys. I'm liking sort of this team theme today, because there's 2 pieces of news out of Fnatic, and I'll read you both and then we'll talk about them. This is from CNBC. Looking for an edge, esports team Fnatic hires sports scientists to try to boost gamers' performance. They've hired sports scientists to a new high performance unit. The unit will study and observe how sleep and stress levels impact the performance of the 60 gamers across Fnatic's teams. They launched this after closing their $10 million funding round in November, because obviously we can't let money sit around. We just got to spend it if we're an esports team. And so this is what they're doing with it. Now, the second article around Fnatic is why Fnatic is giving fans a chance to part own the team. And this is from BBC.com. And they talk about how in their $10 million round of private funding, it was 7.5 million British pounds, $10 million. They want a small percentage of the business, about 1.5%, to be owned by fans. So they're making these sort of this equity available for fans to buy, essentially. What do you guys think of both initiatives at Fnatic? Do we think this is super innovative and creative, whether it's the super sports scientists or the fans owning a part of the team? I'm curious, because both things, the scientists we see in traditional sports, the team ownership, not really, not ever, usually. I can't think of.
So my question with the Packers, though, the team ownership is worth nothing, right? You get a piece of paper that says like, hey, you own a piece of the Packers, but it's not worth anything. You can't trade it in. So is this going to be like that, or is this like, hey, where that will have value, where when they do their next raise, it's worth more? Essentially like they're IPOing a piece of the team. Because if it's that, I think that's really smart. I mean, right now we're seeing the Robinhood effect in all these stocks. I mean, retail traders, retail investors have a ton of money and they're moving stocks. I mean, look at Tesla, all these Robinhood stocks. Why not, if you're an esports team, you have all these fans, why not get them invested, get them involved? I think it's very smart if you're looking at an IPO down the road. if it's just issuing paper for nothing, I mean, yeah, I guess that's even smarter by Fnatic, because then you're getting money for literally nothing. I would like to issue shares in my dog. Like, you don't get to own him, but you can, I'll give you a paper that says you own part of him.
We will include that on the Business of Esports store going live.
I don't know why
we should.
Yeah, you can own 1/10 of Bradley for $1,000.
Cohen's shares, like asterisk, like T symbol.
Fine print. You do not actually get to own Bradley.
There have been similar things in the past. Like it's
people sell like real estate on the moon, right? Like
exactly. Like
but hold on, I will just say they do say 3,000 people signed up, and they've already pledged more than the £1.5 million for Fnatic. It says they won't own a large stake in the team, but they will eventually be able to sell their stock if they want to. He says they want the fans to feel like they're tied to the financial success of Fnatic, good or bad. He says, Sam says it's unlikely, saying they have, he says there's a risk that should things go majorly wrong and the team goes bust, people will lose their investment. He says it's unlikely because they have a 5-year plan and growth strategy. So these are real shares, it sounds like, from the article at least.
So they basically did an IPO. I mean, how did they do this without?
Yeah, that's
equity crowdfunding in the US is legal. There are mechanisms to do it. This is not the first. I mean, there's a number of companies, even in the esports space, that have done equity crowdfunding like this.
But I thought normally with crowdfunding, you don't get ownership. You get like.
No, you do. You do. Okay. For a while, it was just not legal, right? There were too many regulations because technically to make any investment like this, you need to be an accredited investor, which means you need to have $1 million of assets or, right? Like there's certain requirements to buy shares in private companies that were rules for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Canada and the US at some point, maybe I would say 4 or 5 years ago, started to sort of make exceptions around equity crowdfunding. So where people could invest in startups, get shares, not be accredited investors, but still participate for low dollar amounts. So those barriers have been broken. There's different rules now around equity crowdfunding, and there are certain sites that are regulated and allow for it. So I'm sure they just used one of those mechanisms. So to your question, Jeff, it's not an IPO.
They're not free, and they're not freely traded, obviously, but on
any exchange or right. So
you're missing my favorite part of this article, or this news segment, which is CNBC's third bullet point. Can you bring that up again?
Yeah.
Where CNBC feels the need to explain what an esports team is in their third bullet point. But I actually think this is really telling, because this tells you still where esports is in the mainstream. Like CNBC can report on it. It's interesting, but they still feel it deserves a clarifying bullet point for their, you can find similar articles, because I was just Googling in the background, about them covering, sports teams, and they're not the Dallas Cowboys pay 42 players to play professional football and related sports.
In front of tens of thousands of viewers.
Yes, exactly. In front of in events like the Super Bowl.
No, so, I've been saying for a long time, William, there's still a huge education gap, right? People vastly underestimate how big that education gap still is with the mainstream.
What I don't understand is, why is this article on CNBC? It would make sense if the other article about them selling actual shares in the team was on CNBC. That's a business story. This is making me think. It's clearly PR. It's making me think, hey, us at EEG, we need to hire a publicist to get great puff pieces on CNBC about, because literally that article should be in Esports Observer, hey, we hired a nutritionist. That's not a CNBC story. Congrats, you hired someone to make your team.
The other thing that makes me laugh is what do they expect to find? Higher levels of sleep and lower levels of stress correlate with positive performance. No, I'm kidding. I actually think it's a very good idea. I think it's you need an edge at the level of Fnatic plays. You're really doing anything. That level of play that these guys are at, I really think, like, it's not just about, like optimizing the performance of your talent is a very big area to eke out gains, right? You have all of, we weren't shocked when nutritionists came into esports. We shouldn't be shocked now that there's like, I would say this is general well-being, right? Or like, have come into this too. Yeah, I agree. The part of the news that's odd to hear about this is, like I said, it's on CNBC, which says to you that Fnatic feels the need to market itself pretty aggressively right now. Because I also don't think this is the sort of move you do to get PR. I think this is the sort of move that gets PR'd when you say to yourselves, we need some PR. What do we have? Right.
Well, you just raised 10 million. Like startups that raise 10 million, no matter what sector they're in, like hiring a PR firm is like one of those things you do, right? It's the luxury expense you couldn't afford sort of before, and then you do the big round, and you're like, well, now we can afford this, right? Let's see ourselves on CNBC, right?
I totally remember getting my first PR firm at GamerSense. I remember that feeling, and you're like, this is all clear sailing from here. Someone else is going to email the journalists begging for attention.
No, but William, just between like you and me, when we started the podcast, right? Like, I don't know, it's almost 2 years now, more than 2 years now, something like that, right?
I don't know. Paul, with you, time has no meaning.
But when we started the podcast, okay, one of the biggest complaints we had over and over and over again, it's a theme of so many of our early episodes, is teams were doing team stuff like competing in events and selling hoodies, right?
Yeah.
And finally now I feel like there's the flood, like all the things that we used to say were great about Genji, right? And your analytics and how you were doing things different than other teams at the time. All of a sudden I feel like all the teams are starting to sort of get religion. Like we can't just compete and sell hoodies. We need performance coaches. We need the creative memberships like the Envious thing. And we need like, like they're all experimenting now, I feel like. And I don't know. I don't think all the experiments are going to work, but at least there's some experimentation happening beyond just like we enter events and we sell hoodies.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's a more mature market, right? And in a more mature market, you have a rush in where everybody's on a just get to the table strategy, right? Now we're seeing what do I want to order on the menu strategy, right? This is what I like to call phases of a restaurant business, like phases of the restaurant, right? Like first is like you just rush, you just have to get the table. It's the hot place, everybody's eating there. Then you pick the food. That's where you see the differentiation. And then, you get, there's another phase, which I like to call the check phase, which is you see who can, afford to eat their meal, right? The restaurant phase is a cycle in many businesses. I wonder how closely we'll adhere to my little restaurant parable here, but it will be interesting. But I really do think that you're right, that teams like Fnatic doing different, interesting things like this makes me like Fnatic a lot more, and makes me a little upset that they're not on that Forbes list, right? And I think this goes back to the point of, our friend at Envy saying you're not taking into account the new initiatives or all the other stuff we're doing, right? There is something to be said for future-proofing orgs at this stage. It's not just about being there. It's about where, what you're building towards, right?
Guys, let's move on. This next article was requested by Martin specifically. So Martin, hopefully you're still here.
Martin, we will be so mad if you left.
He wanted to talk about it. He asked me about it. And so this is from win.gg. And the article here is Nintendo kills Splatoon esports stream for hashtag free melee support. The article goes on to say Nintendo's reducing its coverage of Splatoon esports for some highly questionable reasons. They said administrators announced that Nintendo was canceling the stream for the Splatoon 2 North America Open due to an unexpected execution challenge on the event's Discord channel. Many are calling foul at this as it follows a number of competitors changing their team names to voice their solidarity with the Super Smash Bros. Melee Pro players recently impacted by Nintendo's legal action against tournament organizers. So a bunch of these Splatoon teams changed their name to include hashtag free melee, and Nintendo basically canceled the Splatoon thing. So Nintendo has become essentially the evil empire here. Why does anyone know why Nintendo's taking such a harsh stance? Right? They're saying the tournament will still take place, but people within the competitive Splatoon scene are asking whether Nintendo is effectively sabotaging its own tournament in order to downplay the free melee and save Smash movements. This led to both Smash Brothers hashtag trending once again on Twitter alongside the new free Splatoon. So, like, at this point, we're trying to free every game from Nintendo. Why? Like, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on why Nintendo. Why? Like, what would compel Nintendo to take a stance this harsh? Like, these are just people trying to play in your game, basically.
I really think someone made an emotional decision that this cheapens the brand, and now they're just going after it, even though it defies logic and rationality. Which
like, this is beyond cultural. Like, I think last time we talked about it, right? We said, there's cultural differences. Japan, US, right? They're much more defensive of the brand. We had that conversation, but does anyone think now they've gone too far? Like, is this now too far?
For the first time.
And now there's the cease and desist for music too. I don't know if you've seen that. There's like massive cease and desist. You play Nintendo music on a Twitch stream. That's like,
no, I didn't see that.
Yeah. And then somebody was tweeting, it's really cute. Like, I guess the only way the Diddy Kong Racing soundtrack released was on a CD shaped like Diddy Kong that like physically doesn't fit in a CD player because it's shaped like Diddy Kong. And they're like, how do you expect us to listen to this music, Nintendo? But it clearly is part of a wider corporate strategy, which is they want to be total control of their IP. Like they're not willing to let any violation slip by, any alternate. And candidly, like, we see other businesses behave this way. Disney, right? Like, other big IP businesses are incredibly strict and harsh about enforcing their IP rules, right? I can't say I agree with it because I think the culture here and the way IP expresses itself is different. And you actually need these sorts of mediums and community supports to thrive. I think it's short-sighted of Nintendo. But at this point, it's definitely not somebody making a hair-trigger decision. It's a business decision to strongly enforce, Nintendo only as a. And I will say, one thing is, of all the publishers, Nintendo is the one that leans the most on its heritage and its back catalog to remonetize. Every new system, there's re-releases of all the games, right? Every new, games era, there's repurposed soundtracks for the tennis products. So they do sort of have a business rationale to protect the past more than other publishers because they pursue a vaulted content strategy more aggressively than anybody else.
What would it take, guys, in your minds, for Nintendo to change course on this? Like the hashtags clearly don't work, right?
Yep.
At what point do maybe they lose enough players? I don't know. Like, what's the metric at which, or the point at which, or the milestone at which Nintendo says, now this is not sustainable for us, right? We wanted to hold this line. We can't anymore. We have to change our thinking on this. Like, is there anything that causes them to do sort of an about face on this one?
It's not really in Nintendo's way. I mean, look at what they've done with all of these sort of cultural stands or organizational beliefs, like mobile. They still have not, they went to mobile, they put games on mobile, but they never really got into it. Now they're kind of backing away from it. And the stock languished for years because of it. So you want to say, because the obvious answer is like when it starts hurting their bottom line in any of these organizations, like typically, the way to change an organization like that is once they start seeing sales decline or they start seeing their bottom line, their pockets getting pinched, that's when they'll change. But Nintendo has proven time and time again that they don't even care about that. So in this case, it almost say nothing, right? Like, new management, like maybe the next rung of people comes from a generation that's a little more forward thinking and a little bit, they come from the generation of streaming and understand the values of it. But other than that, I mean, I don't think one day these people are going to walk in and say, hey, we were wrong.
So you think nothing makes them change course. It's an interesting take, Jeff.
Yeah.
Lindsay, William, do you think anything pushes Nintendo to sort of do an about face on this?
No. The trend is going to get worse rather than better.
You think we're going to see even harsher crackdown?
Yeah.
This really is like evil empire kind of stuff at this point.
Yeah, if you're pursuing this strategy, like these zero tolerance strategies are zero tolerance, basically, right? Like literally, like if you're going to go on a hard IP enforcement strategy, you typically enforce it all the way. Like you don't suddenly go hard, then soft, then hard. It's like that's the party line. So I would expect a lot more of this. It's a pity, but I mean, at the end of the day, like Nintendo just doesn't seem to want its games to be anything other than what they put out there, right? They really don't want the community to be iterating, reflecting, or really growing their properties for them. They want them to be fans and consumers, but they don't want them to be content creators, which is fundamentally what drives a lot of significant portions of the gaming industry today. And it's the wrong way to think about it. But I also have to say, like, if Nintendo does become more of a mainstream entertainment company, like starts doing more TV shows, starts doing more movies, things that I think they should be doing anyway, this sort of zero tolerance strategies makes a lot more business sense, because then you do need more protection for those spaces, right? So I don't know, it's something to think about, but I mean, if there's a silver lining in this, it's maybe this means you're getting your Zelda TV show, guys. Like literally, like if there's a silver lining, it's maybe this is a pre-content enforcement strategy before content. So we'll see.
I mean,
Terry says, sorry, go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree completely. I think they made this decision in their minds and they're going to go after it and not turn back anytime soon.
And the fact that all three of you think no about face will ever happen from Nintendo is scary. Terry says, great discussion. Thanks, guys. When it comes to esports on TV, I'm curious to know if anyone produced a show before me. We always place the gamers first before the game. Same in our first tour, NWC 1990, and first arena in Times Square, Access New York. Gamers should own the space, wag the tail of the publisher. Terry, it's a great thought. I don't know if anyone produced a show before you. I don't know if you guys know, but I agree that gamers should own the space and wag the tail of the publisher, but that's just not the reality these days, right? The publishers just have so much power that, even gamers hashtagging or boycotting, the reality is have not produced much in terms of results or shifted the balance of power. The reality is the publishers hold just about all the power these days. Martin says Smash and Splatoon have practically given up on genuine publisher support. All they're asking for is to do their grassroots stuff unhindered. And Martin, that's exactly what Nintendo does not want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like the problem you had there is grassroots. The irony is the lack of support is the reason they're getting cracked down on. Yeah.
Chris says Nintendo killed the ROMs websites. They protect their games at all costs. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, what's the next level of crackdown? Like coming in, Nintendo operatives come into your home, right? Take anything colored red or green or something like that. Martin, they do go hard and soft on the stance all the time. They tried to bar Melee streamed at EVO in 2013, and after community backlash, they backflipped on this. I mean, if they did backflip, it couldn't have been that hard, Martin, right? Like, because they're still towing this line of stopping events. So I don't know, I don't know if that's
that point doesn't persuade me that they rethought their inclusion in the largest fighting game tournament one time. Like they're going to have to allow some amount of some brand placement for these things, right? Like, but yeah, you didn't win me there, Martin. Good try, but no.
Chris says maybe they hold esports tournaments at the new Nintendo Land
on Smash.gg.
It's a good thought. Well, actually, that was funny, right? Part of our Smash.gg conversation was, is there liability, right? Could Nintendo sue Microsoft now for the word Smash?
Well, Nintendo and Microsoft have been getting closer and closer over this, over Phil Spencer's kind of tenure running Xbox. So, I've even heard, obviously it's been a rumor for a while that, Microsoft could potentially buy Nintendo. I doubt that would happen. And
then sell it to Facebook for half price.
But, I mean, there was rumors about Game Pass or some of the Nintendo games coming to Game Pass. So they do have a relationship. So it's not as crazy. I know we kind of said it as a joke, but it's not as crazy as as you might think.
Guys, as you know, we usually do a fun, quick segment.
The whole thing is fun, Paul. This is all fun.
This is
that's 2 hours of the week. You know that.
This one, Jeff, you're gonna like this one because it's usually something stupid related to me. This one's related to you, Jeff. No.
Segment.
It's a new segment.
Yes.
And the new segment is Jeff comments on something he knows a lot about.
Oh, let's do it.
Oh God.
You got it. I was gonna say it's like Cohen's Corner or like.
Oh, I missed that one.
So much more fun. Why have something snappy and easily memorable when you were memorable?
This is so much more memorable. Jeff comments on something he knows a lot about.
Yeah.
It's easy to remember.
I like being put on the spot.
Looks like one of us is a marketer.
and here it is. Here's the story. New Jersey trending towards approving esports gambling. This was from Esports Insider. Evidently, there's a bill that's being referred to as the esports betting bill, made its way to the Senate. I'm curious, Jeff, since you know a lot about this, what are your comments?
Well, my comment, I think this is great. I think it's the first of many. New Jersey has shown really since PASPA. They were the ones that actually, helped get that overturned, thanks to Chris Christie. I guess he did something right during his tenure as governor of New Jersey. So New Jersey's always been pretty liberal in terms of their gambling laws. I'd say outside of Vegas, they're kind of the tip of the spear, with trying new things. So, we think this is sort of the first of many. Our company, EEG, we are, in the process of getting a license in New Jersey. We already have the skin through Twin River, and we're actually submitting our application to the gaming regulators there in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be live in Q1. So it's obviously great that they're, making this rule. Otherwise, we obviously wouldn't be getting a skin there, because it would be pointless if we couldn't have gambling on esports. But we like I said, I think this is the first of many states. I think there's a number of other ones that are looking at it. Most kind of consider esports to be the same as sports, so some don't have explicit rules around it, but they just can kind of lump it in there. New Jersey, I think, is taking another step to sort of, mainstream esports gambling.
Does this open the floodgates, you think, Jeff, more? Because, Nevada sort of allowed it, but does New Jersey now, like with sort of those two states, does it open the floodgates to much more sort of regulated, U.S.-based esports betting?
I think it definitely does. Like I was trying to articulate, and maybe I didn't do it well. A lot of the other gaming commissions look to New Jersey as sort of a leader, when they're putting out these regulations. A lot of the other gaming commissions have modeled their traditional sports betting rules and regulations around New Jersey. So we think the same thing's going to happen, with esports. Once kind of New Jersey puts a blueprint in place, it's a lot easier for regulators and legislators in other states to say, hey, what those guys are doing is working. Let's copy basically what they've done. That's pretty common practice, in legislatures. So yeah, we think it's definitely a positive for the esports gambling industry, and it probably does, like you said, kind of open the floodgates a little bit.
Martin says, how does esports gambling differ from sports gambling in the U.S.? Why are they differentiated? And Martin, I'm going to assume you're talking from like a regulatory standpoint. Jeff, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
The answer is in most states it doesn't. Like I was saying, a lot of states, they just sort of lump it in and consider it to be, a sport, which I think for all of us, that makes sense. It is a sport. Some states explicitly say that it's not legal. Other states have written explicit regulations for esports. Like some, have created, rules where all the players have to be of a certain age in order for, betting to be allowed on this certain event. So there's different reasons why you would kind of need to have different regulations written. But in general, a lot of states have not really differentiated, esports from traditional sports. But it's sort of like saying, why does like horse racing have different, like why is that regulated differently than just like betting on basketball? They're both sports, but sometimes there is a little bit of difference.
Chris says vital for the betting handle to live up to expectations. that's the new segment this week, guys. Lindsay, I'm gonna have one for you, so don't be ready.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna warn you, although I will take notes from William on a more catchy name.
Lindsay postulates.
That's good. That's good.
I could make these up all day. I was a toy marketer. I'm good at catchy taglines.
Guys, I want to end on two quick stories. So these are the last two we're going to do. One, this one's not that long. I'm trying to find it here. Oh yeah, it was just because William had some thoughts on this, and actually, Lindsay, I'm curious what you thought of this one. I don't know if you saw it, but this was a story in USA Today. Wendy's introduces Never Stop Gaming Uber Eats menu with Twitch streamers and prizes, including game consoles. Basically, Wendy's and Uber Eats are teaming up to release the Never Stop Gaming menu. I don't know why this menu is so specific, but they have combos, signature meal combos, like from the biggest Twitch streamers, Tfue, Flight, Myth, all these guys. And eaters can score Uber Eats gift cards, Never Stop Gaming swag, including gaming hoodies, which you don't care about because you're going to buy a Business of Esports hoodie, and slides perfect for lounging, and the hottest holiday gift this season, a next-gen gaming console. With the prize pass, fans will get a pin to enter on Uber Eats prizepass.com to reveal their prize. So do you guys think this is good activation here? Wendy's and Uber Eats, Never Stop Gaming? Or do we think this is horrible?
It's incredible.
Oh,
really?
yeah.
This is
great.
This is
Really?
totally authentic. This is not marketing speak at all. It isn't 2 or 3 programs that are largely unrelated, kind of ham-fisted together at the last minute. No, I mean, quite seriously, what's good about this is like Wendy's promoting gaming. Like, I think that's good. I think that's a positive. I also think it's a good starting point of synergy, which is like if you're gaming, like if you're watching a TV show or like if you're really doing anything at home, you might want to get takeout so you can keep doing the thing you're doing and you don't have to cook, right? So in principle, as a point of synergy, it makes a sense to market around. This is just such a blunt marketing tactic with no attempt to be nuanced or prepared or why this needs to be a specific for gaming menu versus just a Wendy's takeout menu. Like, it's just weird to me.
Oh, I 100% disagree with you.
Lindsay, hold on. I want to ask Lindsay a specific question here because I want to put it in some context, not just what you think of this. Put it in the context of this versus the KFC, right? Their console thing, which wasn't really a console, and then the Bud Light console, which was actually a console. Like, awesome. Put it in this, frame it in that universe.
You're missing so many huge things in your universe, though.
Like what?
Taco Bell and
all the food
partnership.
Like recently?
Yeah. Taco Bell is literally.
Oh no, and there was the fridge, right? They did the fridge.
Burger King giving away Xboxes to random customers.
Okay, so giving away next gen.
Number 3, I'm not done. Okay. The Travis Scott meal sold at McDonald's, which they are exactly copying. Where you could order Travis Scott's meal. That's this again.
So is this
4 what you're missing? Wendy's is actually like the A standard for online Twitter presence, which is huge. So they have an extremely good crowd and reputation with the type of younger populations that would also be good at gaming. So I think this is smart for so many reasons. I think they're copying a lot of things that already exist. I think they're doing it in a fun and interesting way. I think being able to order the same meals as your favorite streamers is a great copy of the Travis Scott thing with a little bit less money that McDonald's needed to pay Travis Scott. I think Wendy's Twitter is going to be on fire with this, and it's going to be so fun and funny and great promotion for all those streamers too. I love it.
But like, okay, I get the point. Right. Mm-hmm. But you just sort of said they copied like 5 other things. That was kind of William's point, that they just kind of jammed a whole bunch of stuff together. Right. They're giving away consoles, plus they have the meals, plus they literally just took the 4 other promotions you mentioned and like smashed them all together.
Yeah. So why would I go to any other place when I can have everything all at once? Not to mention, yeah.
I think that could way better than Wendy's burger. That's one reason. Other than quality.
Not to mention this like rewards program thing. So good and funny. Like imagine like logging into your Wendy's rewards. I mean, first of all, we have fast food account apps anyway. So like if I can like log in and see little gaming things on there and Uber Eats gift cards and all this other stuff. Yes.
I don't know how they're going to do this. This one's interesting. It says the release says the Twitch gamers, so I assume like Tfue and all those guys, right, will stream games of their choosing while giving fans exclusive prizes. They'll be joined by the ultimate gamer, Wendy, who will also get in on the Twitch action. Do we think this is going to be a live action Wendy, or this is going to be an animated Wendy?
It's going to be an animated Wendy.
Don't you think that's a little lame?
That's super lame. But if they do it well, and if they do it in the same spirit that they have their Twitter presence, it'll be hilarious.
Maybe. It could come off lame.
Their Twitter is literally the gold standard for brands. Like without them, we wouldn't have Velveeta and the NBA stats, or MoonPie and it's like depressing thoughts late at night. Like Wendy's is the one who started like corporations being funny on Twitter. And they famously outdo everyone else, including McDonald's. So if they do this like Wendy streaming thing, they're the only kind of like one of these major brands I trust to do it in a way that's going to be so funny. And if they fail, they fail. Whatever. Their Twitter's still hilarious.
It will be interesting to see, but I'm convinced. I'm almost convinced. William, I think I'm with Lindsay on this one.
I'm actually scrolling the Wendy's Twitter announcement stream right now about this. Like, well, a couple things. One is it seems much more about getting their Twitch channel going as I look at this, right? Like it seems much more about like how this is being positioned as not as a food promotion. It's much more about like they want to get into, just like they've been using Twitter successfully as a social media platform, they want to start using Twitch as it, and they're using these 5 streamers to activate it. And the food is at best a loose tie-in here. It really seems about getting the Twitch channel going. And the second thing is, I will say, can admit when I'm wrong. Lindsay's right. Like the tweet gets pretty well reacted to. It has about 6K likes right now. And yeah, I mean, they're like, you know, pretty spicy back. Like someone at TSM tweeted, "How do I get some of your nuggets?" And Wendy's tweeted back, "It's simple, just order them, lol."
Like, like Wendy's is funny.
The real question is, when does Wendy's start an esports team, and where would they rank?
Oh no, where would they?
And is it possible that maybe we can get Dr. Disrespect and Wendy's? You know,
I'm sure he would.
But Jeff, what % of their revenues would be esports?
I mean,
0, probably.
Wendy's and Dr. Disrespect, you know.
0.
I think.
Can you imagine if it was Wendy's was 99% esports?
We've come up with a lot of good ideas on this show so far today. I mean, we've got Dr. Disrespect Wendy's. We're IPOing my dog. I mean, Wendy's brand marketing. This is just great.
Chris says smarter marketing ploy than the KFC Lifetime movie, though. If you believe Lindsay, then yes. Christine says it will be hilarious. I agree. I think it could be quite funny. Anime Wendy for the Weebos. On that note, guys, I think we end on this, right? We just got so many good ideas here. Don't forget, stay tuned for the Business of Esports merch. Watch out carefully, especially the limited edition stuff like the Team Prophet, Team Professor shirts are very limited quantities. And go buy stuff if you love what we do here. If you tune in every week, not only do we appreciate you coming, tell your friends, send them to go buy merch for your friends. Forget about the Book of Esports. Everyone's bought that by now. Go buy merch now.
Buy it again.
And on that note, we'll be back here next week, Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. The podcast is going to drop tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Terry, thank you. Chris, thank you. Christine, thank you. Martin, everybody who tuned in, who participated, Neil, Roman, all of you guys, Greg, Julian, thank you guys every single week. We really appreciate you. And we will see you guys next week.
Thank you, everyone.